You see here, kid? You gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after or what came before. You just gotta bend your knees, take a deep breath, and jump. And you might think, what if I fall? Well, what if you don't? What if you fly?
Switching command to internal.
From the Collaborative Studios, Open the Eye, where metaphysical, paranormal, and the unexplained meet. Open the Eye with Tanya Tyler.
I don't believe in life after death necessarily. I do think there's a lot we don't understand.
Is there life after life? I really don't feel that there's any way that we could possibly know until we're there.
Yes, I definitely believe that our soul is a very powerful, emotional thing, and I just can't believe that when our body dies, that that's the end.
I've had a lot of family members that have had experiences with people like coming back after they've died, so yeah, I do.
When we die, what if we could come back and tell everyone what happened? Well, there's a few people out there, more than just a few. There's a lot of people out there that have had a near-death experience. They're calling it NDE. We have Gary Wimmer. He had a near-death experience in 1977 in Austin, Texas. When this happened, tell us kind of what was happening leading up to this moment.
Well, quite a lot. I was born in 47, so that's 30 years of leading up to that moment.
Leading up to the time that you're in the road and some. Okay, so that, just give us a week prior to this, I guess, maybe. What was happening? You were with a band. You're out jigging and stuff.
Little quick history to make more sense. I was raised Catholic. Always wanted to know the rules. I figured if we're going to be judged by God and the rules, we better know the rules. So how do we know them? So in college, I started reading a lot about psychics and Edgar Cayce, Madame Blavatsky. Yes, I was playing in a band. I've been reading about psychic ability and giving readings and very fascinated by it. But January 31st, 1977, the world started changing for me. Came back off the road. Quit the band for a while. I was going through a lot of emotional things, patch up things with my lady. I couldn't, support her and so forth. And so with my roommates on that evening, I started noticing, for some strange reason, I could pick up what they were about to say. And this got pretty intense, and I didn't think that much about it. Went to sleep that night, or tried to. Couldn't sleep, up all night. Thinking like never before. I thought, wow, this is weird. I'm going through something, The next morning, my roommate comes walking in with a newspaper, and instantly I saw it through his eyes. As he was looking at it, walking in the door, and I went, Jesus, and he threw the paper down on the table, and I just glared at it. It was the same headlines I'd just seen about Jimmy Carter. I can't remember the specific article because I was baffled. And he looked at me, you okay? Yeah. Well, this phenomenon started happening and accelerating. My roommates left for their jobs. I walked down the store about 30 minutes, 45 minutes later, could start feeling what everybody was thinking. I walked in the store and I felt like, wow, it's loud in here. It's completely quiet, but I could feel everybody's thoughts and energy. It's like, man, what did I suddenly become so oversensitive to everything about? I walked back to my duplex and started unloading stuff because I just moved in with a couple of these roommates. Every time I'd touch an object, I felt like the person who gave it to me or whatever was there. And I'd turn around. They're not there, of course. It's like, wow, what's going on? Am I hallucinating or something? That evening, we went to a bar, my roommate and I. And as I walked into the bar, I felt this strange premonition at a certain spot right outside the door. And then we walked in, listened to the band for a moment, too much noise, too much confusion for me. I'm still picking up everything about people around me. That kind of blew me away still. Went down to sit in the bar on a bar stool, thought about walking outside to take a breath, and all of a sudden I'm standing outside at that spot that I felt that some strange premonition from 15 minutes earlier. And I see these people, and it looks like they're walking right through me, and I opened my eyes kind of in shock. Well, I'm still sitting on the bar stool, But the door flung open, and these people walked in dressed as exactly as I'd seen just a second earlier outside, through the door. And I practiced that a couple times and realized, wow, I can move my mind outside the bar. My roommate came in from the back bar asking me what was going on and tried to explain to him. And
So you're trying to explain because you're in one place and then you end up in another place. Is that what you're saying? You're outside and then...
Psychic and mentally, and somehow with vision, I was instantly transported out to that little spot and instantly back into my seat.
Almost like remote viewing.
Right, exactly. Except I didn't leave the bar stool.
Wow.
And why that spot and why this started happening got me real curious. And my roommate, I bet him $10 I could tell who was coming in through the door. I could tell their names. I felt their names. I felt everything about their life, but I couldn't prove that, so I just described how they looked and was right. Blew him away. Blew me away. Next day, it got so intense that I couldn't remember what normal life was like. All of a sudden, I'm seeing signs all the time. I'm going to go over to a friend's place to help him with something, and I looked up at the wall and saw a brass clock that had like 1:15 on it or whatever, and by the time I got over his place and walked in, that brass clock sitting on his desk saying 1:15, talking my life. In fact, I started seeing a lot of clocks and synchronicity, and this started building up, and it got so intense there was no neutral. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know why. I started getting pretty damn scared. I started feeling quite enlightened all of a sudden. It was like a different reality of extremes that I had never even imagined. But here I am on it, and I didn't know if there was a button to push to stop it or why it's happening or whatever. And I had no choice but to go along with it.
So you're going through this experience for about a week?
Correct.
And at any time, are you kind of feeling like, did I take something? Did somebody give me something? Because it's in the 70s.
Yeah, nobody slipped me anything. It just, and it didn't feel like a drug. It felt like I've had my psychedelic experiences. I'm part of the 60s, a musician.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, figure out I was part of the sex, drugs, and rock and roll in the 60s, But there is a difference. Wow. And it was a profound difference. And that's why I pretty well threw those thoughts out instantly. That ain't it. That ain't it. But and I couldn't turn it off, so there was like no neutral. So I had to either pick up stuff from people or things or put it out. I would look at a stranger walking down the street with his girlfriend. I'd think, lift your hat off your head and wave it in the air, and the person would do it instantly. Did I make that happen, or did I just happen to pick up that guy was about to do that? And I swear I could not tell the damn difference.
Let me ask you this question. As you're going through this process, Gary, are you at any time, are you telling people?
I'm manic, but that's what drove my roommates nuts. But one of them didn't want to deal with it all. He thought, God almighty. I lived there for about 2-3 days and then moved in all my stuff, went on the road, came back 2 months later when this started happening, the night I came back from the road. So we barely knew each other, really. 2 roommates, both Aquarians. One of them was very curious and understanding, and I kind of talked to him. In fact, he's the guy that I was hanging out with most of the time. The other roommate, this guy's crazy, even though we were friends, and he was very intellectual. We talked a lot. When it came to psychic and spiritual, it's like, oh, get off it. He was so dry. But when I got in college and started reading Edgar Cayce, I thought, man, yeah, I've always had good intuition. My mother used to say that when I was young. I didn't quite understand what she was talking about. She's a Cancer. I'm a Scorpio. I had 6 brothers, 7 boys and a father, and only her and I are the only 2 water signs, emotional. So we had a lot of fire and air and earth, fire and air to work around. Yeah, so I developed a sense of, psychic interest. Of course, I was a musician, too, in the 60s,
You're having all these experiences. You're telling your roommate. Where does the NDE come in?
Well, this kept building up, and I was freaking my roommates out, and there was, like I said, no neutral. And I'll give you another example of no neutral, okay?
Okay.
We were sitting in a restaurant, and my roommate is asking, said, how are you feeling now? Because he knew I was going through something he couldn't even begin to understand, Nor could I. So I said, well, let me show you. It's easier. And I kind of nodded toward two ladies over in the farthest corner of the restaurant. And he kind of looked around. I said, you know either of them? She said, no, I don't think so. Of course, the brunette, I couldn't see her face. She was turned away, and I said, okay, I'll have the brunette write a letter. She said, what? I said, I'll have the brunette write a letter to me, or to us. He said, what are you talking about? Don't worry about it. We ordered, we ate, he's eaten. The whole time I'm thinking about that lady, and come over and write me a letter. I'm the guy over here in the blue shirt. Perfectly harmless. I even sent out like a laser beam, like on or lights along the theater that she could see to walk to me. That's how vivid my imagination was. Because there was no neutral. I couldn't just eat and kind of stare at the wall and nothing happened. I was in a true manic phase. I didn't know it at the time. Anyway, 5 minutes later, they came walking by. One lady walked by, then the brunette walked by, and she threw a napkin down on our table. And she had written in big, bold letters, why are you doing this to me? That didn't freak me. I was so freaked out, and so was my roommate. You know, later I wish I would have gone out and asked her, what did you feel? But I was just blown away because here I am screwing with other people's world in some way. You know, I don't want to do that. I just felt this immediate, watch out what you're doing. But I shocked my roommate, shocked her. I was shocking some other people. Being harmless, not...
You weren't causing trouble. You weren't trying to be harmful.
No, I was trying to stay sane. My mind is racing. All of a sudden, this psychic ability taking over like a hurricane. I didn't understand why or what, but I certainly understood what I was picking up. I could look at anything and have a question in my mind like, wow, how am I going to balance this out? And I'd look out in the street and there'd be a guy on a bicycle with his two hands on both sides, not holding the steering wheel. I mean, there's a lot of ways to read that symbolism. Kept seeing everything I was thinking about in symbolism. We could sit out on my porch. This is during that week. One of my roommates and I, we could hear a car coming up the hill. We couldn't see it because of the shrubbery in the hill until it got right in front of us. But I could imagine myself standing out there, and I could read the license plate and tell you the car and describe the driver. And actually, I could tell you about the driver, but I couldn't prove that. So to my roommate, I kept saying it's a yellow Volkswagen, it's a red-haired lady, and she's frantically driving because she's frustrated about her daughter. And Volkswagen come up, and you see her gripping the steering wheel and gritting her teeth. 12 feet from my front porch, pretty narrow little porch we had. So it got so intense, but during this period, I kept feeling some sort of guardian angels watching me, some sort of monitors. That somehow they became known to me as the monitors, even though I couldn't see them. I could feel them watching me. I could feel them. It felt some sort of protection. Like even though I didn't know it was happening, I had some higher protection that did. You know, well, why don't you guys tell me what the hell's happening? So anyway, after a week of this, it built up so intense that on February 7th, 1977, I couldn't take it anymore. I raced out of my house. I'm headed up north, and a guy in a car picked me up. I knew his name, all about him, and blew him away, blew me away. I got out of the car and started pacing up Guadalupe Street, and by this time I was terrified. Everybody who walked by, I could feel every thought in their head, and they were getting louder and louder, and I started crying and racing down the street and praying out loud, God, help me. And then all of a sudden, this fear disappeared. I felt warm. I looked up, and there's this huge light about 6 feet ahead of me, over me. I went, wow. I looked around, and none of these people who'd been watching me, because like I was in the middle of a big circle by then, there was a big crowd of people concerned about what's this guy going through, you know. I didn't care. I looked back up at the light, and they said, do you trust us? And I said, wow, I'm so confused. What's going on? You guys know what's going on? You're the monitors, right? And they said, yes, do you trust us? And I said, I don't understand what's going on. Shh, do you trust us? And a second or two, I was hit head-on by a speeding car. I was outside my body, seeing my body getting tumbled over by the car, and I was expanding outwards in all directions, like a balloon expanding, not like an arrow going one direction, every direction at once. And soon the whole Earth was inside me. And then the solar system, and then galaxies, and then planets. And by this time, I had no awareness of me, Earth, the car accident, anything. It was just pure, beautiful, indescribably beautiful sensations. I didn't question it. It was like, it was answering my questions as quick as I could think of them, even though I wasn't thinking of it. It was filled me full of information.
You were getting filled with what you were needing. Talking to Gary Wimmer, who has had a near-death experience. You've been hit by a car going up. You can see your body, and now you're saying that everything is like almost all the knowledge is inside of you. Is that correct? Like you're just feeling everything.
I'd say this: all space and time was going inside me. I reached the edge of the universe, and it felt like just a thought, some sort of spark of imagination. And it hinted like, yes, this is a spark of infinite divine imagination. I never even thought of that before. But and again, I was not aware of myself. But I feel like I went through this level of consciousness called the colors that allows souls, when they come in, because I was instantly aware of this is how souls leave and come in. They don't go in and out like an arrow. They expand through time and space to leave, and they collapse from all edges of time and space right back to the mama's, when the soul's born. That's how it happens. So I saw this instantaneously. I went to the edge of the universe, saw the colors, then I saw infinite universes, like a starry, starry sky, and it seemed to roll into a big tunnel of light. That's a description a lot of people have used, and it's pretty appropriate, because it felt like I was being shot through a tunnel of silver clouds spinning around. Very comforting. No fear at all. Just pure ecstasy.
Are you feeling love at this time?
For love, protection, ecstasy, colorful voyage, free pass to the super tilt-a-whirl with super strong seat belts, so you're safe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I never felt so protected, loved, rewarded, I guess, because even though I couldn't necessarily feel a me, the experience that I was going through, I knew was mind-boggling and memorable. If I came back, I didn't know where back was, but I knew I was going somewhere. And then I went through this tunnel of light and ended up in this infinite blue space, sky blue, infinite. And it was the mind of God, and it was infinite mind. And it had no beginning, and it had no end, and it has no bias, and it was either here with every possibility, or it wasn't, and there'd be nothing. Because whatever was more powerful than it, that's what we're referring to. The top dog of infinite mind is completely unbiased, infinitely created, and the most stunning thing is, and a lot of people who've had near-death experiences say this same thing, as vastly different as our experiences are, you feel infinite love, incomprehensible in a human form to experience that. It's so far beyond your ability to even comprehend, but we feel it. And you know that infinite love manifested into infinite mind and infinite creativity and infinite possibilities, of which you and me and one and every atom and every molecule and every thought is a part. Everything is infinite mind seeing itself in infinite ways. Why not?
I'm going to take you back to the tunnel, Gary. A big white light that you're going through, or do you see something at the end?
No, I went through the tunnel and didn't know where I was going, didn't know it was me that was even going, so I had no anticipation necessarily of what was at the end or where it might lead to, because it was an experience that was left the logical mind way back down there on Earth. But I felt like I was just sort of going back to where we all came from. But whereas a lot of people in near-death experiences may go over a certain period of time or go see Mama or something, I felt like I went from the basement through the damn ceiling, still launching like a rocket. I didn't stop at any floors. I went through them all instantaneously, it felt like. I was seeing how life came into being, how we became separate souls. I didn't know why or how, but all of a sudden felt like I was being pulled away from this infinite, beautiful consciousness, not even aware of who I was. Even if I didn't know who I was observing it and no longer an equal part of it. I use the term spiritual gravity in my book because it felt like that. I was being pulled somewhere, and I was a little apprehensive. I kind of liked where I was at, and I had no idea where I was heading, and I went back through the tunnel of light, went back into this infinite sky of universes and saw this one and chose that or was pulled toward it and entered this universe and started collapsing from the edge of the universe. Same process in reverse.
Oh, wow. As you're going back, are you coming back here? Are you coming back into your body?
Where I was going, I didn't know who I was, but the closer I got to this planet, the more I felt like I had some association with it.
Gary, as you're leaving, you're expanding and you're going through all of this. Are you by yourself or is someone there to meet you?
Yeah, I felt like the first thing that met me was the 7 white-robed monitors moving through time and space. I felt all sorts of levels of like guides that I was going by so fast. They were a conductor on the train. I just felt them. I saw them, the uniform, bam, next level, more of them. Didn't stop, didn't talk, but the whole trip felt like it was polished. There's a line in Townes Van Zandt's song, Pancho and Lefty, as horse as fast as polished steel. That's what it felt like, polished steel. I was moving so fast. It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And that's why I encourage everybody to, number one, never fear death. Our challenge is here. Period. Now.
Our challenges are here. It's Earth. This is the one that we need to be fearing.
That's on automatic, Except live a good life now. That's it.
When you're with what you call God, right? What you said you were with God, were you seeing your life? I've heard that maybe you see like a life of your own life?
I saw so many pictures, past lives that I'd been through, but again, they were happening so fast. Just like when I came back, I saw all these pictures. Coming back to Earth, unaware of who I was or really what Earth was. It was a foreign planet, I guess. I didn't know anything about it. That's the way I felt. But as I approached Earth, I saw 3 series of pictures. The first was, and these were like real fast, like spinning newspapers, like a collage running by. But I saw chaos, struggle, terrorism. I saw what turned out to be 9/11 and COVID-19 and a lot of this crazy insanity with hate and rage and lies and distruth and wars, which is indeed, unfortunately, what we're going through. But fortunately, I also saw a second series of pictures. And the second series of pictures were about the world ahead, the Aquarian Age, maybe getting out into space, having a peaceful world. We've already gone through the struggles that we're going through now. Now, I'm not sure if there's 100 people left on the planet or 10 billion. A lot of what's happening is sort of being decided day by day by individual and collective consciousness. For example, up to this latest sort of military standoff in the last 4 or 5 years, I always thought U.S. and Russia did a great thing by avoiding nuclear war, as we did. Hope that path continues. I saw so much predicted because, hell, look at breaking news every day. That's exactly what I saw.
It changes all the time. It's crazy.
Today, more this, and then I saw a second set of pictures, like I said, that was the age to come, and it was beautiful. And I still didn't know where I was or who I was, but the third set of pictures seemed to be familiar. I saw a musician and a guy who was a psychic, and I thought, maybe I know this guy. And then I saw these pictures of me playing in the future, and then I saw my body.
Oh,
and
wow.
I jumped into my body like, wow. And the first thing I did, I opened my eyes, and the driver of the car was hovering over me, terrified, screaming, long red hair. Man, I tried to stop it. So I just jumped to my feet. He's trying to hold me down. I'm saying, leave me alone. I pushed him back a little bit. He said, you're in shock. I said, no, I'm not even hurt, man. What? What are you talking about? And all the people who'd witnessed this, what they had seen is me being terrified, crying, praying, running down the street, and stopping, looking up, talking to something that wasn't there, and then a second or two later getting hit by a speeding car, bam, thrown out in the street, and then I jumped to my feet as soon as the driver runs out to help me. That's what they saw.
So they saw you were hit, that you were out, that you maybe a couple minutes.
Well, I was only out for a couple seconds.
A couple seconds. Whoa.
From the time I hit the car and fell out in the street, the driver suddenly stopped, of course, so there was a bunch of traffic behind it. People jumped out, and he ran up to me and started shaking me, and I was already back. Whole happened in 2 seconds of Earth time. But again, I felt like when I was out there, left my body, there was no time. It's just pure sensation. There was no time. And so everything, it was hard to tell if things were happening sequentially or simultaneously, and I'm just digesting them sequentially. Such it is when we're not caught in time and space. It's a pretty beautiful experience. It really is. And ironically, or interestingly, or factually, better yet, that's where we came from. And this time around, you and me and everybody's got a particular body and particular genes and a unique situation because we came here to learn.
Did you get that information of what we came to learn?
Everything. That's why there will always be manifestations in some form or another over time and space. Even if this universe fizzles out over billions of years and all the matter space, there's billions of universes. There's only one. There's no limit to them. How many different levels of time and space and different physics and planets and creativity, there's no limit to that. We're just caught in one that happens to be on Earth and works this way.
This is so fascinating. We're talking to Gary Wimmer right now, who has had a near-death experience in 1977, downtown Austin, got hit by a car, was only out for just a couple seconds. And we're going through the things that he saw and experienced on the other side while he was out. He talked about a couple different series and seeing COVID, 9/11. Gary, I want to talk to you about COVID, but first we got to take a break. So hold on. We'll be right back. I'm Tanya Tyler. You're listening to Open the Eye. Gary Wimmer had a near-death experience in 1977, hit by a car in Austin, Texas, out for just a few seconds. But the things that he saw on the other side, and he's able to explain it now, is amazing. He saw 3 different series of pictures, and one of them being 9/11, COVID. Let's talk about COVID in 2020.
Started hitting Northwest. I didn't think that much about it. And then over the next couple of weeks and months, it became a panic. And then I remember what I had seen was like the whole Earth being covered. It looked like a black tar. It looked like an oil spill going all across the Earth. But I knew it wasn't oil. Mm-hmm. I knew it was some kind of sickness or plague or something. And so somewhere a month or so after COVID started becoming known, as I was watching TV, I saw a picture of the Earth or something, and it reminded me, wow, I saw this. That was COVID.
Wow.
That's what it represented. I saw 9/11. I saw myself watching TV with a bunch of people in blue uniforms, and this plane goes through this building. What the hell?
Right, because you had this experience in 1977, way before 9/11.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But on 9/11, I was on a cruise ship coming into Sweden about 5 o'clock, and right before my last set, a guy said, man, I think y'all been hit by a terrorist attack. It was 4 o'clock or so. And I ran down to the crew room and looked at TV when that second plane came through. Bam! Those people in the blue uniforms all around me, that's the image I saw 24 years earlier. But hell, I didn't know what it meant. But it's almost like when I see that, it's kind of like confirmation of my guide saying, you will see this stuff in your lifetime. Again, how much of it and what and to what degree, that's always informing. Hell, if the whole world decided to suddenly follow the golden rule, we could cure 90% of our problems overnight.
So true. So true on that. What other things did you see in the first series? What else can you think of that you saw?
I did see a lot of Earth changes. I did see a lot of global sea rise. And I mentioned this on a show about a year ago about the Mississippi probably becoming pretty wide, two separate countries. I can't guarantee it, and I certainly don't want to guarantee it because I don't have the ability to create it or stop it. Is it guaranteed? I don't know. I saw it. I mentioned it on a radio show, and one guy said, man, I don't want to hear that. I live up in... He lived on the Mississippi.
Oh. Of course he did not want to hear that.
Yeah, he didn't want to hear that. And I said, I don't think it's next week or next year, and I don't think it's for sure, but I do think over time that'll happen. Now, how much of the East and West Coast is still around, I don't know. It's not happening overnight, although big chunks will happen. Earthquake, humankind's actually doing a pretty good job of trying to keep ahead of the curve on these unforeseeable twists of nature. I don't think anything we're going through right now is in vain. I don't think this big world transformation is in vain. We have to see the holes in the boat and the flaws in ourselves and in our systems and what needs to be fixed before we can fix it.
We're talking to Gary Wimmer right now, who's had a near-death experience and sharing some of his insight. This was from 1977, seeing COVID, seeing 9/11, him seeing some things changing with our Earth. You had this crazy ability going into this experience with you. Can you say, did that stop when you came back? Were you not able to hear people's thoughts more, or did that enhance, or were you able to control it?
That's the answer. I was able to control it. It's like the volume got cranked up full blast for a while for me to understand how loud the music can be. And then when I came back, I mean, it took me a couple months to get back overwhelmed by what I experienced, and I was still experiencing it for months. I was still picking up stuff. It just slowly tapered off. But yes, it profoundly affected my psychic ability because if nothing else, it showed me during that first week how everything can be interpreted symbolically. That's how the universe talks to us. That's how our guides talk. That's how higher mind talks. It doesn't call you on the phone and email you. And higher mind does work through its people, so that's higher mind working as well. But I learned to pick up the signs and recognize, wow, that's how you communicate. And I encourage people all the time. Number one, meditate. Turn off your worrying mind. Get clarity. Number two, ask your guides to help you and to show you how to pick up the signs and how to develop a two-way conversation. I think that everything you experience from the moment you're here to the moment you go is the universe communicating with you.
Beautiful.
I don't think there's one thing we experience in life, one in vain second. And that's what I learned to appreciate. I've been through my series of damn doubts and fears and curveballs, but you can learn everything. You can learn from anything. You can learn from the good, the bad, and the ugly. You can learn from fear. You can learn from success. And life guarantees us experiences, cycles that we don't understand at the time. But if we never went through some surprises and changes, we'd be dumber than a rock. Half of what we learn in life is because we have to take a chance and dive off the board. Hope that water's real.
Yeah, please. That'd be good. Let's talk a little bit about now. So you're able to control your energy, your psychic ability. What are you doing nowadays with that ability?
Busy doing readings. I've got a rather long waiting list. So
okay. And how are you doing the readings? Tell me a little bit about that.
I use a system called lithomancy. In fact, you can go look at lithomancy.com. That's lithomancy.com, and you can see a lot about me. Or GaryWimmer.com, GaryWimmer.com. I've also been an actor and a writer and a musician, but there's a psychic link there. Lithomancy is basically a system involving 16 stones. This is what my friend Alice Worrell, who passed away about 6-7 years ago, taught me this in 1980. And it boils down to the 16 stones, 10 of them represent astrology symbols: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. So the 16 stones are the 10 planets, and then the other 6 stones are love, life, luck, commitment, timing, and place.
Ooh.
I also use a regular deck of playing cards. And I do most of these over the phone. I charge these stones up. I have the client say drop. I drop them. They're 7 inches above a circle of leather. Drop them into the middle of the circle. My guides talk to me. We can connect with that power. But you have to choose to do it in practice, just like if you want to learn to play golf or raise your consciousness or fix a dishwasher. You decide, then you get your tools and you go do it. I think I've learned, because I've been through so much fear and doubt, that maybe the ego is the fear and doubt, not the enlightenment.
Ooh, that's a good one. I haven't heard this one. I like that. That's good. I've heard that when some people do their work, they have to set the ego aside for a little bit while they do this work to connect. Raises the vibration of them.
Absolutely true. Think in terms of spirit and spirituality, and me and my guides being on the same page, and they'll talk to me and they'll help me, and it works.
Exactly. Are your guides the monitors?
It's interesting that you asked. I saw them one time, February 7th, 1977. For months and months, I kept asking, why did I have this experience? I have to know. Why me? No complaints. Loved it. I mean, Jesus, the most grateful person on the planet, but how did I get picked out? And months later, sometime in the fall of 77, I didn't see them this time, but I felt them out of clear blue all of a sudden in my front yard. And they're sending this information into my head, almost like a laser, a light. At the same time, I'm seeing what looks like screen credits rolling off in the distance, like a Superman movie. And the basic message was, you got this experience because you were always curious, you wanted to know, you asked, you started reading, asking questions, giving psychic readings. I mean, Jesus, you wanted to know, so we took you. That pretty much that simple, and it blew me away, because the one thing I never, ever expected was my own curiosity. Underscore, be curious.
Oh.
Amen. Ask questions.
That's a beautiful one.
Amen, because the more you ask, the more answers you might be able to get. You know?
Let's talk about your books.
Well, one of them is A Second Eternity. It takes the reader through the voyage that I went through, but that was my intention. The reader right with me. Here's what I'm feeling right here, right now, and then this, and then this. And in the back, I included all the police records and said, yeah, this guy got hit by a car and was talking UFO and didn't make any sense, and we couldn't understand it. And they first took me to the hospital. Wasn't hurt. They were amazed. They x-rayed me. And then a psychiatrist came in, and I knew his name and all about him, and he blew his mind. Didn't blow mine anymore. But he said, look, we're going to have to put you in a psychiatric hospital. We can't let you just walk home. I thought, I understand. And he took me to a psychiatric hospital, and I didn't care at all. It was a joyride to me, because I had just been to heaven, and man...
How long were you in the hospital for?
I was in there for 10 days. Now, at the end of 10 days, they bring you for a whole board of psychiatrists, and they bring me before they want to know if they need to redo the 10-day mandatory commitment or if I'm okay, and they can free me. And I told them, said, look, the story I told you, the nurses, I ain't changing. I told my psychiatrist. And my psychiatrist was a real, by the book, very, very, very fundamentalist, fearful Christian. And he couldn't comprehend at all what I said about God and infinite mind and reincarnation. It just blew him away. The more he heard it, the more it blew him away. While we were talking for about 10 days, he'd come see me every day or so. And what blew his mind is every day I'd go to the nurse and get a piece of paper. Actually, I got 10 pieces of paper and 10 envelopes. And I'd look up and I'd see the clock hands move to the time that he would appear. And I'd write that down on a piece of paper, seal the envelope, give it to the nurse, and say, give this to the doctor when he comes in. So when he came in, he'd get the envelope, he'd walk to my room, said, well, what's this, a letter? I said, yeah, read it. He said, well, I'll read it later. I said, no, read it now. It's just one word. He goes, what? I opened it up. He says, 2:35. What does that mean? Look at your watch. 2:35. On the minute, 11:15 or whatever. And I kept trying to say, I'm not trying to screw with you, Doc. You don't believe in psychic ability. But I talked to him a lot about his kids. He had 2 sons, and he was having a real problem with them. Some advice, and it kind of blew him away. But at the end of the meeting, at the 10 days, he's one of the people on the board, and I could tell by his glint that he was very grateful about what I told him, unsolicited, about dealing with his kids, his sons.
So where can we buy the book?
Called A Second in Eternity by Gary L. Wimmer. You'll find it on Amazon or Kindle. The other book is called Lithomancy, The Psychic Art of Reading Stones. Lithomancy. Litho means stone. Mancy means divination by. So lithomancy means divination by stone. GaryWimmer.com, GaryWimmer.com. I write a lot, and I still do readings, so that's kind of what I'm doing.
Yeah, and you're booked up for a minute, which is beautiful. So congratulations on that.
I'm so grateful that I can help and inspire people because, boy, I have sure asked the universe to help me make sense of it. Ask, and you shall receive. But the more you ask and the more you do with good intentions and do your part, you can't beg God to teach you to play golf if you don't even pick up a club. I mean, come on.
You got to do your part, people. Gary, you've been a dream. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. I'm so grateful. I'm so appreciative of your time.
And thank you, my dear. And stay inspired. I like the work you do. OpenTheEye.com, and you do jewelry and mindset coaching.
Oh, you spied on me a little bit.
You're an HHD practitioner. You got your act together pretty well there, my dear. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate you.
Same thing I tell people nowadays more than ever. Love yourself, especially now in these trying times. Love yourself for all the good stuff you do. Greases the wheels of creativity and spirituality. It turns the light on.
Oh, thank you. You're listening to Open the Eye. We are talking about near-death experiences. We just heard Gary Wimmer, who had a near-death experience. So I want to know from you, have you had any near-death experiences? What do you think about the afterlife? Where do you think our soul goes? You can always call in at 512-722-3266. What are you thinking?
You know, not having had one, I can't say none of us really know what happens behind the curtain or behind the veil or when we die, and I think that's one of life's great mysteries. So when we have somebody who the doctors say was on death's doorstep or their heart stopped, they stopped breathing, and they physically died, and they have these experiences, I think it's fascinating, and I think it's definitely something peek behind what is on the other side. Yeah, I think it happens. I really do. And everyone's different, but you can't discount the experiences that these people say they had and went through.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for chiming in. What are your thoughts?
There's just so many different directions to go on it, but I do believe, I know the soul lives forever. I know that I have history within me, that it helps guide me, you know, my ancestors that guide me into my decisions, that help me feel stronger in, you know, more rooted in like, this is the right thing to do, or, you know, just being more confident in my decision making. And I feel like it comes from my ancestors. So I believe that our energy never goes away. And I believe that we have the capability to be supportive of our future selves, but I don't know where we go. I sometimes believe we are, you know, from aliens. And so I wonder if that's where we return. We are just all on these different dimensions, and I go and live another life on another dimension, and my soul still is connected to me in some form, but yet I am living in the future or the past currently, because everything is happening all at once at the same time, so they say. So I'm a little torn on, you know, where we go. I think I'll find out when I die. I am not afraid to die. I feel like it's just another part of my journey, and to become the best soul that I am, I must go through all these different learning opportunities and these different dimensions. I feel like that's what drives me to understand as much as I can within this dimension to be able to carry it on.
Interesting. I think it's all really fascinating. What are your thoughts?
It's a great question. So I've changed a lot in the last 10 years, and mostly dramatically in the last 3. But my whole entire life growing up in the Christian home was, when you pass away, your body is emptied, the soul disappears, your spirit rises out and goes and, you know, hopefully goes to heaven, and you're there forever. In the last few years, I have heard really very impactful stories of people's lives when they have a near-death experience. This is funny because my bride is looking into this recently, looking at some blogs and shared some stories with me. Honestly, Tanya, my perspective, I don't know now, but I'm wide open to finally saying it could be. These things happen. Pass away, I'm hit by a car, and the EMS brings me back to life, and then I have this story of all these things that occurred. I still don't know why. Why did I die and then come back? The value of that. So I want to know that kind of questions I've had. That's when my question comes up. Okay, why? Why did that get revealed to me or them? But what's the profit in it? I guess. It's very fascinating. Really, it's fascinating.
Thank you so much for chiming in. I appreciate it. So, what are your thoughts? Near-death experiences? Do you believe our soul continues on?
So I personally have never had a near-death experience. As far as where our souls go, I do believe that our bodies are simply a vessel. And once our physical body passes, that our soul spirit does go somewhere else. I don't quite know what that looks like, but I certainly do believe that it doesn't just die with the physical body. I will share with you that when my grandmother was ready to die, she was basically catatonic at this point and was nonverbal and was just hanging on until she was ready. And I was holding her hand and talking with her and reminiscing and sharing stories. And when I mentioned my grandfather and all of the good memories that we had, she squeezed my hand. And she knew. She knew what I was saying. She knew that I was there.
Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate you tons. Thank you. We just heard Gary Wimmer, who had a near-death experience. So I want to know from you, have you had any near-death experiences? What do you think about the afterlife? Where do you think our soul goes? You can always call in at 512-722-3266.
With me personally, I'm at a crossroads. I personally believe that I've had a near-death experience where I don't really know how to explain it. It felt like there was almost a reset button that was pushed. But I do believe that the soul, it's got to jump somewhere. And mine went, I don't know how to explain it. Mine went somewhere and back really quick.
Did you have a physical trauma or something happen?
Yeah, it was just a low point in my life. And it was a time where I tried to take it.
Okay.
And it was my way of, I guess, acknowledging that it wasn't my time to go, just because of this reset. I don't know how to explain it.
Good word to use, reset. Were you shown anything?
Just a flash of light. It's almost as if like a old TV, when they used to have that little flash before they turned off. It was almost like that, and that's why I guess I kind of think of it as a reset. It's like somebody flipped a switch, a little flash of light, and a million thoughts, in that split second that everybody can talk about how it, beautiful experience in one of the most traumatic times in my life. So I believe in a higher power of some sort. I don't know, nobody, I believe, has a firm grasp on what it is, but there's something out there that's working the cogs of our universe. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for being vulnerable. I really, truly appreciate that tons. Thank you. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you shared something.
Well, thank you.
What are your thoughts on near-death experiences, or where do you think our soul goes after we die from this physical body?
Hi, this is Hugh. I was recently in Martinique on a vacation in December and was in the water swimming with a friend of mine that was located just down below a restaurant that we stopped at for lunch. And it was a great, beautiful tropical day. The water was, the part of the ocean we were in was a beautiful bay, a small little bay, and the waves were breaking out a couple of 100 yards and then washing in the shore. And it was just a kind of a lovely jump into the water. he, being younger than me, was out a bit further, catching the breaks and body surfing a bit, and beautiful and kind of sort of rough area of water that we ventured into. Now, I'm a pretty good athlete. I participate in endurance sports, and I'm very fit and a good swimmer and not afraid of the ocean at all. I'm a diver as well. So after lunch, we were out swimming, and it came upon us pretty quickly that the water was pretty powerful. And I was standing about waist to chest high for a while. My companion went out further, and I decided I wasn't going to go that far out, but I did catch a few waves. And before I knew it, I was swimming and not standing. And the water was pushing me around, and the waves were coming and breaking over my head, and I started to get fatigued. I tried to head to shore, and I was making no progress at all. I had the early signs of panicking at this point. I'm looking for Victor. He's not there. My buddy, and I don't know where he went, and I am struggling in the foam and the froth and the waves that are lapping over me, and I'm trying to stay above the surface, and I'm going below. So I flip over my back for some rest and to try to figure out what I'm going to do. And at this point, I'm panicking. Try breaststroking in, and I'm not making much progress. And I'm losing time and losing sense of what's going on. And I feel like this is going to be the end of me. So it was something that I seemingly couldn't control. But I pushed on, and miraculously my foot touched the bottom just of a top of a rock, just very lightly, and I realized that there was hope for me to make it to shore. So I sort of doubled my effort and swam in and made it to shore. I wasn't at that point. I had sort of lost time, and when I got up on shore, I felt like I wasn't sure whether I really made it out of the water, or and now I'm having an alternative sort of universe perspective, or what? And I stumbled around on the shoreline and looked out to see where Victor was, and he was way out past the shore break, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen to him, but I felt at that point like I didn't know if this was real or not, if I had drowned or I didn't.
How long did that take you to get back into your body or to realize what was happening?
Probably took me a minute or two, but it was a long minute or two. And I think after that I was in a state of shock and being dazed that I just went through that experience. And it was such a struggle in the water, just being pushed under and pulled out. That lasted for another couple of hours, thinking about my experience and the near tragedy that it was.
Did your friend make it out?
He did make it out, and it was another probably 10 or 15 minutes, and he looked at me when we met back up at the restaurant, the outdoor restaurant, and said that he thought he wasn't going to make it and was at peace with himself, he said, if he had in fact drowned there in Martinique.
Has anything changed for you after this experience? Because that was just 4 months ago. Is that correct?
Correct. So maybe a couple of things. I'm experiencing PTSD when I think about this story. It's less and less sort of alarming recollecting it, but I still have that sensation. I think just lingers as a stupid thing that I did, and I'm being the sort of the athlete and thrill seeker that I am. I'm a bit ashamed that I let that happen. And as far as anything from a supernatural or soul perspective, I don't know. I haven't fully digested all of that sort of cerebral, metaphysical assessment.
Hugh, and I want to say thank you so much for calling. I also want to say thank you so much for sharing this experience with us all. And thank you for going back through this because it sounded like it was pretty hard for you every time you talk about it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. You're listening to Open the Eye. We're talking about near-death experiences. Earlier, we had Gary Wimmer on. A lot of you have chimed in, so thank you. I truly appreciate it. About 3 years ago, I went down this rabbit hole of wanting to know more about the afterlife. And I found all these near-death experiences. Like, I could not get enough of it. I had to find more and more. And I think that my soul was hungry for what happens after we leave this lifetime. Where do we go? And a few years ago, I had lost my mom and my stepdad. And so I think there was a calling for me to know more and more. So as I go down this rabbit hole, and thank you for going down the rabbit hole with me, we're going to hear a little bit from Jeffrey Long, who is the founder of Near Death Experience Research Foundation.
A near-death experience is, as the name implies, you're near death. In other words, you're so physically compromised, you're generally unconscious and may be clinically dead with absent heartbeat, absent respiration. Now, at that time that you're unconscious, and it should be impossible to have a lucid, organized remembrance, you do have the experience part of a near-death experience. I want to emphasize no two near-death experiences are the same, but all of us researchers that have studied them see that there are a very consistent pattern of elements, or what occurs during the near-death experience typically occurring in the same consistent pattern of occurrence. Very often you see what's called an out-of-body experience that occurs initially. Consciousness rises above the body, heightened senses, typically very positive emotions, the classic passing into or through a tunnel, encountering that mystical light in the end of the tunnel. Deceased relatives are often there. Life reviews, often encountering unearthly, or if you will, heavenly realms are commonly reported.